I always knew something was wrong before anyone else said it out loud. Maybe it's just my brain. Too much caffeine, too much scrolling on doom-laden forums. Maybe I just expect the worst. But that morning I felt it in my bones. My name's Tyler, 31. I work from home in Indianapolis for a software company that nobody outside of a 3-mile radius cares about. I should have been thinking about my deadlines, or the fact that I still owed my landlord for a busted water heater, or that my mom kept texting about the new neighbor girl like I was still in high school. Instead, my eyes stuck to the living room window like glue. Something was off, and it was the kind of off that settles into your skin and doesn't let go. It started with a cough. Just a cough, but so many people coughing. I cracked open the blinds and watched the sidewalk. Old Mrs. Greeley next door was out on her porch, hacking her lungs out like she'd smoked a carton before sunrise. She wasn't alone. A kid on a scooter, one of the Nelson twins, I think, stopped mid-ride to double over and spit into the grass. Down the block, a group of guys in faded Colts shirts were moving a sofa into a pickup. I heard one of them clear his throat, then wipe something red from his mouth with the back of his hand like he was trying to hide it. Blood for sure, and I don't care what anyone says, you know blood when you see it. It makes the air smell different. That copper tang, like a penny left on your tongue. And then, as I'm standing there watching, a military van rolled up to the intersection, painted dull brown with a number stenciled on the side. No sirens. It just idled, blocking traffic, not moving for a solid 20 minutes. People gawked and pointed, but the soldiers inside didn't get out. They just sat there, faceless behind mirrored glass, like mannequins. One of my neighbors, Rick, tried to walk up and ask them something, but the window stayed up, the engine rumbling like a threat. Eventually, Rick shrugged and walked away, and the van didn't leave. It just stayed. Too long, for any normal reason. By 9:30, every group chat on my phone was buzzing. At first, it was just links to weird Reddit threads and blurry TikToks. You seeing this? Tyler, check channel 8, bro. I made coffee, but it tasted like burnt plastic. I tried to work, but my hands kept wandering to my phone. The news on TV didn't help. One anchor said it was a gas leak. Another blamed a regional infection event, whatever the hell that means. They told us to stay calm, to stay inside, to avoid the area near the base. There were too many jump cuts, too many quick breaking updates that never actually updated anything. My friend Jen texted that her dad, he's a nurse, said hospitals were full, but nobody was saying what was actually wrong. Then she went silent. So did most people. Around noon, my cell signal flickered, then died. I thought it was my crappy carrier, so I tried my laptop, but the Wi-Fi was down too. The router blinked at me, but nothing loaded. That was the moment my heart started beating faster. Because I work remote, I need the internet. No internet means no work, no calls, nothing to distract me from the gut-level sense that this was bad. The only thing still working was my old radio, the kind my dad gave me when he moved to Florida. I turned it on and heard static, then a weird stuttering broadcast in a voice that barely sounded human. All I caught was, "Military zone fallen. Do not exit your home. Lock doors. Repeat, do not," and then it cut off. Just that message, again and again, breaking up, skipping, like it was fighting to get through. I tried calling my mom, straight to voicemail. Same with Jen, same with everybody. My group chat went dead. No blue bubbles, just gray, hanging, like the whole world had been unplugged except for the thudding of my own heart. That was when paranoia settled in. Not the kind that makes you crazy, but the kind that makes you look at every shadow in your apartment twice. Every cough outside sounded closer. Every knock on a door made me jump. The street was too quiet, except for the far-off sound of something, maybe sirens, maybe not, echoing from downtown. Then, Sometime after lunch, I saw my neighbor's front door swing open. I knew Amy a little. She had a rescue dog that barked every time the mail came. I watched her step outside, her arm wrapped tight in a towel, blood soaking through like she'd cut herself cooking. But the way she moved was wrong. Stiff. Her head kept jerking, her eyes wide and empty. The dog, Chewy, tried to follow, whining, but she shoved him back inside and slammed the door. I stood at my window, heart pounding, telling myself I should go check. But I didn't. I couldn't. She looked right at me through her front window, and I swear to God she didn't blink, not once. I backed away and pulled my blinds shut, chest tight with a mix of guilt and terror. By 3, there were more military trucks. They didn't even try to help anyone. They just blocked the end of the street, soldiers getting out in twos, rifles up, not talking to anyone. A couple of them started pounding on doors, but when Mrs. Greeley opened up, they just yelled at her to stay inside, then slammed the door and moved on. No explanations, no help. I heard glass shatter somewhere down the block, followed by screams that choked off as quick as they started. The smell in the air got worse, acrid, like burning plastic and rot. That's where I made the decision. I grabbed what I could, my dad's old baseball bat, some canned food, bottled water, duct tape, a first aid kit, and whatever else I could carry. I locked every window, taped over the mail slot, pushed my dresser up against the front door. I even considered crawling into the crawl space, but the thought of being trapped under my own house felt even worse than what was happening outside. My hands shook the whole time, but I kept moving. I kept moving because the one thing I couldn't do was stand still. Some people might say I was overreacting. Maybe they'd call me paranoid, a prepper, or just another idiot who spent too much time watching disaster movies. But I knew. You don't need to see a monster to know it's under the bed. You don't need a news alert to tell you when the world is ending. Sometimes you just feel it. The wrong routine, the coughs, the blood, the silence, the way nobody would look you in the eye. I was alone in my apartment, breathing shallow, waiting for a sound that would mean everything was about to change. And that was when I heard it. A scratching at the back door, slow, steady, persistent. Not a dog, not the wind. Something with a purpose. I backed away, clutching the bat, wishing I'd called my mom one more time, wishing I'd done anything different. But it was too late. The world was off the rails, and all I could do was lock the doors and hope I was ready for whatever was trying to get in. The scratching at the back door didn't stop. It got louder, more desperate, until it was almost a pounding. I stood in the hallway, bat in my sweaty hands, forcing myself to breathe. For a second, I almost convinced myself it was just Chewy, Amy's dog, maybe freaked out by all the noise. But then the sound changed, something heavy dragging against the wood, nails or fingers scraping, a soft, gurgling moan. I wanted to run. I wanted to hide, but my feet wouldn't move. I kept thinking about my dad, the way he'd joke that courage is just fear in motion. My hands shook so bad, I almost dropped the bat. I had to look. I couldn't help myself. I crept into the kitchen, moving slow, barely breathing. I reached for the blinds above the sink and peeled them back just enough to see. My neighbor, Amy, was standing on the back porch. Blood had soaked through the towel around her arm, dripping onto the welcome mat. Her face was wrong, twisted with pain and hunger, her mouth opening and closing like she was chewing on words that wouldn't come out. Her eyes weren't empty now. They were full of something that made my skin crawl. She locked on me, and I froze. She pressed her palm to the glass, smearing blood across it, leaving a red handprint. Then she slammed her head against the door. Once, twice, 3 times, until I heard the glass crack. I backed away, feeling my knees buckle. The radio kept squawking that same message in the living room. Military zone fallen. Do not exit your home. It sounded more frantic each time. I tried to call 911, but there was nothing but a dead line, not even a dial tone. I texted Jen, no answer. I texted my mom, my boss, even Rick from next door, just anyone. My messages hung there, unsent, trapped on a dead network. That's when I heard the gunshots, real gunshots, the kind you only hear at the range or in action movies, but this was right outside. I hit the floor and crawled to the window. 2 soldiers in full gear were standing in the street, rifles up, firing at something I couldn't see. One of them shouted, "Stay inside!" But his voice broke like he was scared out of his mind. Then someone, lunged at them from behind a parked car. The soldier fired. Blood sprayed across the pavement. The thing didn't stop. It kept coming, arms flailing, mouth open wide, until both soldiers went down under a mess of bodies that weren't moving right. Not human anymore. Not even close. I pushed myself away from the window, heart hammering. Down the block, Mrs. Greeley was screaming, high and thin, then choked off. The gunshots faded. What was left was worse, the wet animal sound of flesh being torn, bones snapping. I wanted to vomit. I covered my mouth and forced myself to move, to do something. I ran around the apartment, locking everything again, shoving more furniture against the doors. I filled the bathtub with water, like I'd read once in a disaster prep article, in case the taps stopped working. I tried to keep busy, tried to keep breathing, but all I could think about was Amy's face on the other side of the glass. Around sunset, it got quiet. Too quiet. I sat in the living room with the bat across my lap, my back to the wall, lights off. I listened for anything. Sirens, helicopters, even that stupid barking dog. Nothing. Then I heard footsteps in the hall outside my apartment. Slow, dragging, shuffling. I waited, holding my breath as they got closer. Someone banged on my door. 3 quick knocks. I almost didn't answer, but then I heard a voice. "Tyler? You in there?" It was Rick. He sounded scared, desperate. I let him in, checking him over like I was suddenly a doctor. No bites, no blood, just wild eyes and a busted lip. He kept glancing at the windows, his hands shaking worse than mine. "It's bad out there, man," he said, voice breaking. "The soldiers are gone. They just left us." I tried to calm him down, but there was nothing I could say that would make it better. We sat together in the dark, listening to the radio repeat the same warning. I offered him a bottle of water. He drank half in one gulp. That's when we heard glass shatter again, closer this time. Rick jumped to his feet. "We have to get out," he whispered. "We can't stay here. They're coming." But where would we go? The world outside was a nightmare, and everything we knew about safety didn't mean anything anymore. I thought about running, just grabbing my stuff and making a break for it. But my legs wouldn't move. The only thing that felt real was the cold weight of the bat in my hands, Rick's panicked breathing, and the sick certainty that nothing would ever be normal again. We made it through the night, barely. I kept expecting Amy, or whatever she was now, to come crashing through the glass. But she didn't. The sun rose, weak and gray, but there was no relief. The news on the radio was worse. More cities falling, no rescue coming. I looked at Rick and saw the truth on his face. He was waiting for me to make the call, to decide what we did next. I wanted to believe that help was coming. I wanted to believe that if we just stayed put, someone would fix this. But deep down, I knew. The dead weren't staying dead. The military zone had fallen, and we were on our own. That was the moment I stopped waiting for a rescue. I started looking for a way to survive. I always thought I was a decent guy. I paid my taxes, held the door for old folks, tried not to let road rage get the better of me. But it turns out the line between good and bad, right and wrong, is razor thin when your street is crawling with dead people trying to eat the living. After that first night with Rick, something in me broke. We watched the neighborhood rot from the safety of my living room, blinds drawn, furniture blocking the doors. I didn't want to leave, but food was running low, and the water in the tub was turning gray. Rick kept pacing, muttering to himself, twitchy as hell. He wanted to run. He talked about his sister a few miles away, how she'd have supplies, maybe even a gun. I tried to tell him we should stay put, but he wouldn't listen. It happened fast. He packed his bag, tried to make me come with him. I almost did, but I kept thinking about Amy outside, about the things I'd seen, those soldiers torn apart, Mrs. Greeley's scream, the way the infected moved. I just couldn't do it. I watched Rick slip out the back door, moving quiet as he could, holding my old flashlight in his fist. I wanted to call out, to tell him to come back, but the words stuck in my throat. He disappeared into the gray dawn. I never saw him again. The apartment felt bigger after that, emptier, colder, like the walls were watching me. I tried to keep it together, tried to act like nothing had changed, but at night, I heard things outside. More than once, something hammered at the door, low voices babbling, the scrape of teeth on wood. I pushed the couch against the door and sat behind it with the bat, sweating through my shirt, waiting for the world to end. One afternoon, I saw smoke rising a few blocks over. At first, I thought maybe it was help, a signal, a rescue. But the fire kept growing, orange light painting the sky, the smell of burning plastic and meat creeping through the cracks. I realized the fire was coming from the Green family's place. I remembered their cookouts, their stupid inflatable pool, the way Mrs. Green always yelled at her kids to come inside before dark. Now their home was just a signal that nowhere was safe. That night, someone pounded on my door. I almost didn't answer, but then I heard a voice I recognized. Jen. She was crying, gasping, begging to be let in. I opened the door a crack, saw her standing there wild-eyed, covered in dirt and sweat. I checked her for bites, just like I did with Rick. She shook her head, sobbing, "Tyler, please. They got my dad. They're everywhere. Please." I let her in, and she collapsed onto the floor, hugging my legs like a lifeline. I should have felt relief. Someone else alive, someone I cared about. But all I could think was, what if she was infected and didn't know it yet? What if I'd just let death walk into my home? I forced a smile, gave her water, listened to her story, how the hospital fell, how the military just shot anyone who ran, how her dad had changed in front of her. She didn't sleep. Neither did I. A few hours later, there was more noise outside. Shouting, gunfire, things breaking. We looked out the window and saw a group of survivors, maybe 6 or 7, running from a horde of infected. One of them tripped, fell, screamed as the others kept running. I watched as the infected tore into him, watched his friends leave him behind. Jen covered her mouth, crying. I realized then, nobody was coming to save us. Nobody was playing by the old rules. Later, we heard banging from the apartment below. Someone was alive down there, yelling for help. I looked at Jen. She shook her head. "Don't! You can't save everyone!" I stared at the floor, heart pounding, knowing she was right. I didn't move. The banging stopped. The next morning, the infected broke into the building. Jen and I heard them in the stairwell, growling, moaning, the slap of bare feet on linoleum. We barricaded the door, grabbed the bat, a kitchen knife, anything we could use. They started pounding on our door. I thought about all the things I'd never get to do. Call my mom, say sorry to Rick, hug Jen without fear. The pounding got louder, wood splintering. I swung the bat when the first arm came through, screaming as blood sprayed the wall. Jen stabbed at hands, kicking and sobbing, her face wild. We fought like animals. We survived, but the door was gone, the apartment ruined. Jen was bleeding from her arm. "Just a scratch," she said, but I couldn't stop shaking. We grabbed what we could, climbed out the window onto the fire escape, dropped down into an alley. The city was unrecognizable. Cars crashed, bodies everywhere, the sky full of smoke and screaming. We just started walking. No plan, no hope, just movement. The world behind us burning, the world ahead, nothing but gray uncertainty. I knew I'd never be the same. I wasn't sure I wanted to be. We didn't look back.